Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Janelle Wilkins, the Director of State and Local Government Affairs at the Leadership Conference Education Fund and the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We are grateful to our partner, NALEO Educational Fund, for their decades of partnership. The Leadership Conference Education Fund is the organizing and education arm of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the nation's oldest and largest civil and human rights coalition of more than 200 national organizations. For the Education Fund, the 2020 census is among the most important civil rights issues of our time. Historically, the census has excluded certain communities at disproportionately high rates, including people of color, immigrants, urban and rural communities, and young children. When communities are undercounted, they are deprived of equal political representation and access to resources. This means a lack of transportation to access jobs and food, not enough community health centers, overcrowded classrooms, and voter disenfranchisement. With so much at stake, all of us, whether we're community members or state and local elected officials, have an enormous stake in ensuring the accuracy of the count. This is why the Education Fund launched the nationwide Census Counts campaign in 2018 to serve as the collaborative hub of businesses, nonprofit organizations, faith leaders, and other key stakeholders working together to ensure a fair and accurate 2020 census. The Census Counts campaign includes national organizations and statewide Get At The Count coalitions in more than 30 states and growing. This afternoon, here at the Los Angeles Athletic Club, the Census Counts campaign, in partnership with NALEO and State Voices, will hold its fifth and final Get Out the Count Regional Summit, a two-day, in-depth 2020 census convening that we've also held in Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, and Philadelphia. And today, why we are here right now, is to highlight a critical part of our national campaign: engagement of state and local appointed and elected officials in the 2020 census. The Leadership Conference Education Fund is proud to stand with over 200 state and local elected officials who have signed on to our Census Champions Network. Census Champions is a network and resource for state and local elected officials working to ensure a fair and accurate count in the 2020 census, especially in historically undercounted communities. At the time of our launch today, over 200 state, local, appointed, and elected officials have joined Census Champions to commit to engaging and leading 2020 census efforts in their communities to make sure that every single person is counted. When they join Census Champions, these state and local elected officials receive resources and information from the Leadership Conference Education Fund so they can take action to support a fair and accurate count in their communities. We are proud to stand with and support these elected officials, several of which you will hear from today, representing Census Champions and the NALEO Education Fund's Hágase Contar campaign. We are proud to call Mayor Garcetti a census champion.
And a friend.
Mayor Garcetti has led mayors across the country in opposing the citizenship question and led his city in developing one of the most comprehensive census outreach plans in the country, in addition to allocating record funding for the 2020 census. We thank him for hosting us in his city and for all of his leadership over the 2020 census. Mayor Garcetti.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. What a joy it is to be here in Los Angeles, which is a place that knows a thing or two about belonging. This is not just a city of diversity or inclusion. We are a city of belonging in a country that should stand for belonging. And the best way to belong is to be seen, to be heard, and to be counted. I'll get into that in a second, but I want to thank you, Janelle, Ashley, Allison, everybody at the Leadership Conference Education Fund for your work to organize this summit with the NALEO Education Fund. I'm proud to serve on the NALEO National Board and also to be the founding mayor of the Latino Alliance of Mayors at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And Los Angeles is so proud to be part of this effort to make sure that we bring leaders together who talk all the time to their constituents and to make sure that they are not erased. Don't erase yourself. Be counted. And it is every day. I just saw actually a poll that I think Pew Charitable Trust put out that asked folks all around the country, who do you trust? Well, I'm sorry, and we have many friends who are in Congress. It wasn't the Congress. It certainly wasn't the White House. But local and state elected officials are trusted at a higher level than almost anybody else. It was just above, and I say this in no bad way to all of our friends in journalism, just above journalists and just below, I think, business people. It was one place where folks know who is close to them. They see us at the library, they see us at the grocery store, and they see their city government doing things like picking up their trash, making sure that their power is on, making sure when you call 911 that somebody comes. And that's why I signed 2 years ago an executive directive to reestablish a mayor's census office in LA and to designate liaisons not just in that office, but every single city office here in Los Angeles. And my census team has been working hand in hand with an amazing relationship with this state, with this county, our neighboring cities like Long Beach and others, and community-based organizations across LA, because as we saw, there are people who want to erase us. There are people who want us not to be counted. There are people who want to see us lose a congressional seat, have less of the tax dollars that we generate come home to us. But here in LA, we won't let that stand. And across the country, we are saying, in those hard-to-count communities, whether it is folks that are Americans that are living with the scourge of homelessness, whether it's immigrant communities or others, we will always let people know, 1, you are safe and we will defend you. 2, you need and you deserve to be counted. I'll say a little bit more about what we're doing in LA, but let me acknowledge some of the great folks that are here with us today. First, our State Senator Marilena Durazo, who I'm so proud to stand alongside with everything we do together. State Assembly Member Miguel Santiago, whose district we are in and who's been leading the fight on everything from homelessness to access to community college. This is the author of the guy who made community college free for a second year in California. Proud to be your wingman. So excited to have with us Commissioner Stanley Moore of the Cook County Board in Illinois. Welcome. And it's always great to have Illinois in the house. Thank you for being here, too. And National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis, who's a dear friend, fellow sister mayor, somebody who is out there making a difference, and the first Latina elected in her city as mayor, which we're very proud of as well. And thank you also, of course, to Lisette Escobedo, the director of NALEO's National Census Program, which has been such a key part of this work. And I want to thank Maria Garcia, my census director, and the rest of my census team who are doing incredible work. Thank you guys for all that you do, as well as our community organizations. Look, this is simple. Since 1790, when a group of U.S. Marshals first swore an oath to undertake a just and perfect enumeration of the population, this has been the law of the land. Through Republican, Democrat, even through Whig administrations, we have done this. And this has been something that's been important because this is one area of our national mission that should not be weaponized and should not be politicized. Now, we can say that, but we're seeing in Washington that it has been. If immigrants in our city are too afraid to participate in the census, we pay a price. Things don't get better, they get worse. If immigrants are too afraid to report a crime to a police officer, we're all less safe. If immigrant families are afraid to send their children to school, our economy suffers, our social fabric frays, and we lose funding. And if immigrants are too afraid to make investments in a city or to launch a small business, we all feel the price of that. We won't let that happen here. So what are we doing here for the census? To make it possible for folks who don't have internet access to fill out the census questionnaire, we've partnered with LA County to host census action kiosks across our city. We've identified 200 locations so far, from libraries to family source centers to senior centers. We're also recruiting and training volunteers. They are our census champions. We call them Census Goodwill Ambassadors, to educate, motivate hard-to-count populations across Los Angeles. We've already held 4 training sessions this summer. We have dozens of volunteers already ready to go, and it's not even 2020. We've also set up a website that we want to share with Angelinos, census.lacity.org. If you want to join this fight, if you want to volunteer, we need you, so please join us. Finally, our message to folks above all is just this. By law, the U.S. Census Bureau cannot share your information. I'll say it again. The U.S. Census Bureau cannot share any information that could be used to identify you with anyone for any reason. They cannot do that, and we will not let them. So don't erase yourself. You belong here, and we want you to be counted. También en español yo quiero decir unas palabras. Los Ángeles está orgulloso de ser parte de este esfuerzo para asegurarnos que tengamos un conteo justo y exacto en el 2020. Hace 2 años firmé una directiva ejecutiva para restablecer una oficina del censo en la oficina del alcalde y designar enlaces en cada departamento de la ciudad para prepararnos para el 2020. Mi oficina del censo ha estado trabajando con muchos de nuestros compañeros para prepararnos para el conteo de 2020. Esta es su voz, esta es su identidad. Y es importante participar porque los recursos que nosotros merecemos son el resultado de su participación en el censo. Para ayudar a los que no tienen acceso al dinero para llenar el cuestionario del censo, nos hemos asociado con el Condado de Los Ángeles y el Estado de California para localizar kioscos de acción para el censo. Hemos identificado más de 200 ubicaciones en bibliotecas, centros de Family Source y centros para adultos mayores. Es muy importante participar en porque Los Ángeles es una ciudad donde toda la gente pertenece. Y continuaremos juntos, ganaremos esta batalla. Y también es más importante quién está en nuestra casa de en la Casa Blanca. With that, I'll turn it back over, and thank you so much. No, appreciate it. Oh, sorry. No, I'm supposed to introduce you. Let me introduce the man, the myth. He is a man who has done so much on the census. The record amount of money has come from California to make sure that we are counting $180 million, and we thank him for that, together with the state senator. Please welcome our assembly member, Miguel Santiago.
Muchas gracias. Y para los medios de comunicación en español, queríamos empezar con diciendo qué importante es este cuento. Y háganse contar, es lo más importante. Hemos dicho eso en los 90s, en los 2000s, pero esto es la primera vez donde tenemos una administración donde está haciendo todo lo posible para que no se cuenten los números aquí en California. Lo que resulta en podamos perder billones en dólares para cuidado médico, billones en dólares para transportación, billones de dólares en seguridad, billones de dólares que nosotros queremos invertir. También podemos perder sillas de Congreso, y eso es sumamente importante. Esta administración ha hecho todo lo posible para atacar a California, y es por eso que promovemos la ley 1563, para asegurar que cada persona sea contada. Es sumamente importante. Empezó esta administración con atacando California y diciendo que iba a haber una pregunta si era uno documentado o no documentado. Sus proposiciones de ingresos también atacaron financieramente a California. Vamos siendo realistas en lo que ha pasado. California va a sufrir y nuestros recursos en California van a sufrir si no se hemos contado. Entonces, esta proposición estamos asegurando de que toda la gente sea contado, con promoviendo los derechos de todos los que se cuentan y asegurando que haya penalties, disculpen, para todos los que quebren esa ley. No se pueden hacer como si uno es un contador de censos. Tampoco puede tomar información y dirigirla a ninguna otra agencia. So let's be very clear about why we're here, because this is the most important census that we are facing, because for the first time, we have an administration who is attacking California in every way possible and trying to withhold funds, beginning from their tax bill that directly affects California in one of the worst ways, directly with the citizenship question, because they know that California has a high level of immigrants. So this cannot be a partisan effort to attack California, because what's at stake is billions and billions of dollars that we can use for healthcare, billions of dollars that we can use for transportation, billions of dollars that we can use for public safety. If there is ever a time to be counted, this is it. That's why we're proposing in the state level R 1586, AB 63. And this is really important, because what it will do is it will allow the Secretary of State to promote the Census Bill of Rights. And it'll start promoting it next February so that folks know what their rights are to be counted. It'll translate into 7 different languages folks' rights so that they understand what they are. This is really important. What is also important is for the first time, there'll be a liability if you're impersonating a census officer or if you're acting like impersonating a census officer. And there's a difference. One is deliberately walking up to somebody and taking information. The other is just taking information down when you're not a census worker. And this is really important. So what the message here today is, in California, we're not only investing the dollars, we're not only working with local municipalities like the city of Los Angeles and its leadership through the mayor. We're not only investing the dollars for people to be counted, but we're also creating the laws that protect people when they are counted. And this is by far the most important census that we face. Thank you. And I'd like now to introduce Lisette Escobedo, Director of National Census Program for the National Educational Fund.
Sorry. I just had to pop a halls because I'm losing my voice here. So my apologies if you need to edit out a cough or two. In 2018, NALEO Educational Fund launched its elected and appointed official census work, engaging Latino leaders from across the country on the importance of a full and accurate count in 2020. Since then, many of our NALEO members have gone on to lead important census work in their communities, from enacting resolutions and launching localized full count programs and complete count committees, to championing increased census funding at the state and federal level, like we previously heard. So today, we are proud and excited to join our amazing elected and appointed officials from across the country, many of whom are also NALEO members, as well as our partners at the Leadership Conference Education Fund to launch their Census Champions program. This work is particularly important for NALEO Educational Fund because we cannot afford to omit millions of Latinos and other Americans in the nation's decennial count. An inaccurate count of the nation's second largest population group, which is Latinos, would mean an inaccurate count, period. Which is why our Hágase Contar campaign to ensure a full count of the Latino community, as well as our Hazme Contar campaign focused on ensuring a full count of Latino children, are both so crucial. Census data will not only determine nearly $900 billion in funding for our community, schools, and families, but also accurate political representation, an issue never more crucial for the Latino community than in this moment in time, given the political climate. Our organization is thrilled to see our elected and appointed leaders take the call to public service with such commitment and dedication. They, like NALEO Educational Fund, Leadership Conference, State Voices, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, and many, many other local, state, and national partners, understand what the census means for our community. We all realize it will take all of us working together to reach every single individual in every single hard-to-count population. El Fondo Educativo NALEO está comprometido en trabajar arduamente para el conteo completo de nuestras comunidades. Cada familia y niño no contado significa menos fondos y menos recursos para nuestras escuelas y servicios y infraestructura necesaria. Felicitamos a nuestros funcionarios de cada nivel de oficina pública por su dedicación en asegurar un conteo completo en sus comunidades. Thank you and muchas gracias. Now with that, I'd like to introduce Cook County Commissioner Stanley Moore, who joins us from the wonderful state of Illinois.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Stanley Moore. I'm Cook County Commissioner out of the great city of Chicago, state of Illinois. I want to thank the governor, the mayor, local elected officials for the work that they've done in California, because they set the stage for the rest of the country. The rest of the country was looking at the what should we do for the census. And when we looked at California as that format, we used that format. And with that, our governor was able to appropriate $33 million towards the census effort. It's not $180 million, but we're very proud of our governor in the state of Illinois, and also our Cook County Board President, who has done an unprecedented effort across the country, and she's appropriated $4 million from the county level towards the census effort. So this is all very, very important, and everybody recognizes in California, like anyone else, this is not just a local issue, this is a national issue. Hard-to-count populations are under attack all over the country, not just in one area. We are fighting to make sure that our populations are counted everywhere. And we feel like we're not getting the support that we need from the federal government. But we are working hard to make sure that each one of those communities are counted. I want to thank Beth Link. I want to thank Janelle Wilkins. I want to thank the Education Leadership Fund. I also want to thank my staff back in Springfield and Chicago for the work that they've done around the census effort. You know, this year the census has decided to do something differently. They decided to do the census online, which has never been done before. So we don't know what the outcome is going to look like. I bought my father one of those Alexas not too long ago, and I hooked it up at his house, and I came over 2 weeks later, and I said, Alexa, what time is it? Alexa? Alexa. Looked at my father, and my father said, I unplugged her because she was recording me. This is the type of thing that we are worried about because seniors don't trust putting their information online. Many people don't trust putting their information online. And for my father not to trust it is very important because he's the architect of the Census Bureau. He's the one that wrote the plan for the entire country. My father has done 7 censuses. 7. No other employee has ever done 7 censuses across the country. And so you do the math. It's done every 10 years. He's going to kill me for that one. But this undercount, this hard-to-count population for the upcoming census could produce a negative consequence like we have never seen before. And that negative consequence will last for 10 years. So whatever we do will last for 10 years. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, who is unable to receive a voucher to secure safe and stable housing, a single parent in Los Angeles who cannot provide the quality of life for their aging loved ones, or for a young man in Sioux Falls, North Dakota, who desires to attend a 4-year college but does not have the means to do so because the state scholarship program is experiencing cuts. All of this is affected by what we're going to do and what we're about to do. So we need your help, and I'm asking, and nationally, I'm traveling across the country, and I want to thank them for allowing me to come to California, but I'm traveling across the country because I believe in this mission. I believe in the importance of counting the undercount population, and I want to make sure that I urge you to go out and talk to your local elected officials, talk to your state elected officials, talk to your federal elected officials, make sure that they have created a complete count commission in their community, in their city, their state, and ask them, have they funded it? This is important that we do this. They've never had to do it before, so it's unique and it's different to them. And if we don't do this, we're going to all suffer the consequences in the end. Thank you so much. I'm Stanley Moore, Cook County.
Next, let me introduce one, the only Maria Elena Durazo.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this supposed to?
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. Janelle, who put this together, to Naleo and the Leadership Conference. I was proud to serve on the California Senate Committee on the Census. And I chaired the Budget Subcommittee, which oversees the funding for the census for the state of California. I was proud that we increased an additional $30 million for an historic total of $187 million for the 2020 census. That is an investment. That is an investment into our communities on many levels. We have been working on a plan for 2 to 3 years, I think, after the mayor started his. But we have a plan, and that plan aims to reach all of our hard-to-count counties, cities, down to the neighborhood. During our hearings, we heard testimony that ranged from the kind of media outreach that we should have, both the large networks all the way down to the local, neighborhood, ethnic newspapers and radio stations. We heard from community, regional, and statewide organizations. We heard from language experts. We heard from big and small, rural, suburbs, and urban areas. We heard about the barriers that make our residents hard to reach and about solutions, the fears of immigrants, the languages beyond the top spoken languages like Spanish or Mandarin, others like indigenous dialects, challenges reaching our multi-unit structures and renters who occupy crowded units, how to count everyone, including our babies. Who are our most trusted messengers? like elected officials, churches, and schools? And how about the jobs that we'll be creating? How to recruit for those jobs, and who should get those jobs? And strengthening our outreach by earmarking $23 million just to small community-based organizations. And finally, as my colleague, Assemblymember Santiago said, legislature to protect our communities, like the one that makes it illegal to impersonate a census worker. I'm very proud of our State Director, Ditas Carige, for her deep dedication in taking this all the way deep and throughout every corner of California. We have to make sure we get what Californians deserve to support our housing, healthcare, and transportation needs. We have a plan to be counted, but we all have a job to do in order to make that plan work. Quiero dar las gracias a todos mis colegas por el esfuerzo que están haciendo para asegurar que se haga contar. Y los millones de dólares que el Estado de California, aparte de los fondos que la ciudad y los condados van a invertir, es un dinero, son fondos de nosotros para asegurar que millones, cientos de millones de dólares no se nos niegue del gobierno federal. Por esas razones y muchas más, estamos muy contentos en estar aquí como grupo para asegurar que todos los residentes de California sean contados. Gracias. And I want to introduce now Representative Hardaway from the Tennessee General Assembly, District 93.
Morning. And I am State Representative G.A. Hardaway. I'm out of Memphis, Tennessee, but I come to you today as a member of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. We've been working on the census issue since we were last disappointed back in 2010, 2011. We understand that census and redistricting is critical if the one man, one vote principle is to be advanced onward through our time here on earth. One of the speakers said earlier that the impact would be for 10 years. That's the direct impact on the redistricting, but the secondary impacts will be multi-generational. The National Black Caucus of State Legislators is engaged in educating the public. We're engaged in motivating the public, and then we're mobilizing the public. We understand that at the end of the day, all of the talk that we're having this morning will go through the state houses. It's up to legislators to educate ourselves and to educate the public so that we have a fair and accurate, complete count, which is the only way for the one man, one vote principle to be advanced. Without a fair, accurate, complete census count, we don't know where we are, period. We don't know who's here, much less how to give them their constitutional rights, which involves the different appropriations and the policies that are made by state government and by federal government. So our job as the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, governing over 700 state legislators statewide, and the chairman of our Census Redistricting Committee happens to be Carol Ammons, who is from the great state of Illinois. So I bring you greetings from her and also from our president, Gilda Cobb Hunter, who is out of South Carolina. You can understand then that this is important not only nationally, but important especially for the South with our historically undercounted populations. Whether it's a language barrier, whether it's economics, whether it's about the housing patterns, or whether it's just about poor planning. Those kind of mistakes cause us to be underfunded and to receive less of the resources that the federal government and the state government allocates to our citizens. So I challenge each and every legislator to educate yourself so you don't let your people down. And I challenge every citizen to educate yourself so that you know how to push the legislators towards the right decision when redistricting results. Census and redistricting are kinfolk. They're as close as you can possibly get. Redistricting will not be fair, will not be just without an accurate census count. So once again, educate yourself so that you can be represented fairly in government. Thank you.
So our last speaker, I've already introduced her, and I'm so proud that she is here. No worries. There you go. Check.
All right, there we go.
Alejandro Sotelo Solis, who is the mayor of National City, California.
Buenos dias, good afternoon, well, still morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alejandra Sotelo Solis, the mayor of the city of National City in San Diego County. And why are we here? Because we know that statewide we need to make sure that every single person is counted. Every single person is counted. And in San Diego County, we know that it's a diverse population, and that speaks over 80 distinct dialects and is one of the primary refugee resettlement areas in California. In National City, our population of about 60,000 has an average income of $41,000 for a family of four, making it essential to allow for flexibility in manners of how each one of them will be counted. And it was mentioned earlier, mail, online, in person, and I believe on phone.
Yeah.
Over the phone too. As we move through this fall period and inch closer to 2020, it's our responsibility as community leaders to reaffirm the trust with our neighbors by providing ongoing updates. 3 major updates that many of my colleagues here already mentioned. 1, there is no citizenship question on the census. No citizenship question. And the information gathered will not be shared with other government agencies. 2, there are $20 an hour jobs, so go and apply. For those local individuals, 18 or older, U.S. citizens, and those ready to get their community counted. We need those trusted individuals from those neighborhoods to get those jobs and become the counters in their own neighborhoods. And lastly, we need to make sure we take an age-friendly approach to making sure that everyone is counted. So that means our infants, K through 12, young professionals, sandwich generations, which are those adults who are caring for young children and those elders in their families at the same time, our seniors and our centenarians. And this is all important by partnering with our educational, health, and nonprofit service providers. So if you haven't already thought about it, get your elected officials to think about their libraries being the account area, or your community colleges, as well as your PTAs. We got to start thinking outside of the box. And lastly, when it comes to the County of San Diego, we are pleased to stand side by side with the U.S. Census Bureau, the California Complete Count Office, and as a board member of NALEO, the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, and everyone here in the room to make sure that you are counted. Muchísimas gracias, y de parte de sus vecinos del sur, de San Diego, de la frontera, nosotros vamos a luchar y seguir apoyando a todas las organizaciones y todos nuestros compañeros que están aquí para ser todos contados para el Censo 2020. Gracias.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again to our state and local and appointed officials who are here today, and many across the country who are working very hard on efforts to get out the count. I also want to acknowledge that we have City Council Member Blanca Gomez from Victorville, California.
Born in National City.
Born in National City. We have a board president, Dora Sandoval. as well from Lake City School District, California.
Yeah.
So
Nora
thank
was
you
born
so
in
much.
Appleton.
And at this time, we will take any questions from the media. If you have questions for specific speakers, please do direct it to them. We know that the mayor is short on time, so if you have questions for him, please be sure to address those to him first.
You know, when you talk about the idea of an undercount, any kind of an estimate of what we have here in California as an undercount, number one, and two, the concept of using online census taking now, is that going to free up more individuals physically to go on out and do the hard groundwork on finding people, counting people in underserved, undercounted, hidden communities?
Sure, if there's anyone who would like to speak to the California undercount, I'll allow them to do that, or we can also send some follow-up information to you. Is there anyone who wants to speak to the California undercount specifically?
Best estimate, I know we're.
Yeah, I
trying to
don't
stop
have
it.
the exact number, but I do know LA County is the hardest account in the state, and California is the hardest account in the country. So we are up against a lot of issues that I mentioned earlier.
So it's yeah, go ahead.
I would just say, again, in San Diego County, particularly, it was 71, 72%. So that meant that 30% roughly were undercounted. So when we talk about those resources, as was mentioned earlier, housing, we really need to make sure, and it's changing the narrative. It's not hard to count, because if you ask the right questions, people will feel the need to feel acknowledged and counted. So it comes down to who those trusted people are, and whether it be 20%, 15%, or 30%, we really need to make sure that the right people are out there advocating, again, for those 3 points that we discussed earlier.
Do you think, though, that by having online, counting and doing it that way, will give you the necessary human beings to go out there and do that hard to count, as you pointed out? Because say, come to the phone, come to a college, come to a library, nothing beats somebody knocking on your door.
Right.
I don't care if it's 2020 or it was 1920.
Well, I think it's another tool in the toolbox. We're not banking on just one solution or one method. And I know Janelle's going to share a little bit more about that.
Yes, so part of the census being online is a cost-saving measure, absolutely. But what we are here to encourage people to do is that we would like them to go online and fill out their form when they get it in the mail, to go ahead and mail that back in, because it is very expensive. When you mentioned the enumerators coming to the door, that is a very expensive measure when you send someone out. So what we're doing is encouraging people to go ahead, as soon as you get your information to respond, to go ahead and go online and get that filled out. So we'll go ahead and take the next question so that we can get to other media as well. Did you want to add something?
To answer your question.
Do you want to come to the?
Well, to answer your question, like Hill Caucus, we did discuss that, if you recall. And what we pressed is, once the dollars are dispersed, we're going to be pressing for local community organizations to do it, and folks who know them. Like, for example, in Los Angeles, you have Chirla, you have Cares, and just to name a few, you have Catholic Charities. So we'll be pressing for some of the state dollars to be actually used by some of the nonprofit organizations.
So we figure that in a way of sweeps, meaning the online is the first shot.
Yes,
And then all of a sudden you
Phase
go.
one.
Yeah,
Phase two.
and the census has its approach, but I think pressing for the grassroots approach and knocking on doors is probably going to be one of the most effective, particularly in low-income and immigrant communities where maybe you're not jumping on the internet every day, and maybe you're not trusting the internet, but nonetheless knocking on somebody's door with a familiar face in their language, maybe even a neighbor, will probably be the best way to do that.
1990 estimate was 835,000 under.
If you don't mind.
1990, that was last time.
1990,
835,000 Californians.
figure double that.
Cook County Commissioner Stanley Moore, with that question, 65% of the population will be counted in traditional means, meaning that most people will respond to their flyers, will respond to the mail, will respond by phone, or respond by internet. But 20% of that population will be counted in enumeration. That's door to door. But the part that we're not talking about is the 15% that will be counted. That's the hard to count population. And how do they get counted?
Well, maybe a redirect on Pete's question, and I think what he's trying to get at is that because if you're pushing the online campaign, you're basically getting rid of the low-hanging fruit of people that are willing to go online, and therefore they're already counted. So when the enumerators go out, they have fewer doors to knock on. Is that the way that you're looking at it from a strategic perspective? perspective?
I would say that it's also harder, so it's not gonna take one time or two times, it's gonna take numerous times. And that's why these additional resources are so important to invest in the, as we say, the hard to count. The hard to count aren't gonna do it the first time around on the internet, and they don't have access to the internet in the same way. So we really have to invest the most of our resources, additional resources, in the hard to count communities and neighborhoods.
And Assemblyman Santiago, you said something about impersonators in the bill that you were pushing right now. Is that really a big problem?
Well, look, let me tell you what the bill does and then why we think it's a problem on a variety of fronts. Number one, what the bill is attempting to do, if the governor signs it, is to put on the Census Bill of Rights on the Secretary of State's website, along with the 7 different languages and the different rights that a person has to be counted. 2, we want to make sure that there's a penalty if you violate as pretending to be a census worker or acting to be a census worker. That you could either get 1 year in jail or a $1,000 fine or potentially both. And here's the reason why. We've already begun to see some of this. One of it is we're concerned that ICE agents may come into California and pretend that they're a census worker. And that is a real fear for our community. We need to make sure that this does not happen. So this is a primary concern. The other concern that we're beginning to see in our communities is you're starting to see different sorts of frauds. Not related to the census, but we're seeing I'm an attorney that does immigration. I'm a foundation that's going to help protect the community. If you just sign up and give us $20, if you just sign up and give us $50 a month, or here's the bill that you're getting. So what we're trying to anticipate to prevent is somebody coming to a door, pretending that they're a census worker, and saying, well, hey, I need your contact information because we're counting for the census. By the way, later on there may be the potential for financial crime or a scam or something, and so that's the reason we're beginning ahead, because we're not going to be able to prevent all the frauds and all the scams, but we're trying to send a strong message that in California it will be against the law to impersonate a census worker or to act like a census worker.
Is that not already federal law?
Well, there's some laws, but it relates to financial gain. There may be the instance where you're collecting information that may not be financial gains, and so we want to make sure that that's the case. And we've debated this over and over in the legislature, because there was people who were saying, some of our colleagues, well, isn't it already in the law? Well, it is if there's some financial gain, but if there isn't a financial gain in the collection of information for other reasons, it may be an area that's gray. So we want to make absolutely certain, again, that the Census Bill of Rights is posted on the Secretary of State's website in all the different 7 languages, and then also that there are some fines, that there's a $1,000 fine and the potential for 1 year in jail if you are acting like a census worker or if you're pretending to be a census worker and collecting information.
Lack of financial gain, I feel like you're saying ICE, is that correct?
It could potentially be ICE, or it could be, the argument could be I'm collecting information and I haven't gained any financial gain, even though they could be down the line. So we want to prevent that. And that's why we've actually even been a little bit more detailed in saying impersonating a census worker or acting like a census worker, because there's a difference. If I knock on your door, I'm impersonating. If I am standing in front of your door just counting people, I'm acting.
Okay, wonderful. We have time for one more question. Is there one more question?
I have one more. This is more for Mayor Garcetti. Just obviously the census question, whether we're going to have it or not, has really damaged
Citizenship.
Citizenship question has damaged people. We're not sure who might have been affected by that and not be coming to do the count. Can you talk about do we have any sense of what that has done to Los Angeles, and can you talk about what local authorities can say?
Look, I have a lot of faith in our communities to deliver messages and to hear messages, but that's why we're doing what we're doing here today. When we saw this administration begin many of its anti-immigrant policies, we saw, for instance, early on that Latinos were underreporting sexual violence and domestic violence. The only racial group that went down right after the inauguration of a new president and the announcement of many of these things. But we then were very clear with our messaging, and for better and or for worse, it's now equalized again. So we know that this fear, whether it's this or something else, this is the playbook that we're seeing, unfortunately, out of this White House too often, that if you can just spread fear enough, we can cause permanent damage. And it was very sobering for me to be with Antonio Hernandez, who used to head up MALDEF and now the head of the California Community Foundation, said, if we can just get as bad an undercount as we got 10 years ago, I will consider it a victory in Los Angeles. That's what we're trying to get up to. Now, I'm always an optimist. I think we can surpass that. I think technology can be our friend. It's true, internet access is tougher for some of our communities, but Latinos, for instance, are more connected through their phones than any other racial group, even with lower income. So we can get internet connection through that. And through trusted partners, I believe we can surpass the undercount of last time and get up even higher. And we need to. And I think as long as we are, with your help, getting that message out there, I don't think we will have an impact as long as we stay constant with that message. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.